right. Well, you guys, welcome back. If you are new here, we are the Habit team. The Habit is a nutrition coaching company made for women by women. Our program is built for you with coaches who put your goals, lifestyle, and personality first. If you want to learn more about us, head to the episode notes or go to thehabit.com. That's habit with a Y to either request more information or book your free discovery call. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the most powerful mindset tools I use with every single client I coach. And honestly, if I could teach one psychology tool to women trying to lose weight, this would probably be it. Because here's what I've learned after coaching hundreds of women. Most women don't struggle because they don't know what to do. They struggle because of the meaning they assign to what happens along the way. In other words, they are reacting to the story that they're telling themselves, not the actual evidence. And once you learn to separate those two, it changes literally everything. So today, I'm going to be talking about evidence versus story and how this one simple shift can completely change your weight loss journey, your confidence, and honestly, your relationship with yourself. So let's dive in. First and foremost, your brain quite literally is a storyteller. Have you ever noticed how quickly your brain fills in the blanks? Something happens, and within seconds, you've created an entire narrative. Let's say the scale goes up. Immediately, your brain says, it's not working, I've gained fat, why do I even bother? But here's the question. Did the scale actually tell you any of that? No. The scale told you one thing. It displayed a number. That's it. Everything after that, you supplied the meaning, the interpretation, the prediction, the judgment. Your brain is constantly trying to make sense of the world, and it does that by creating stories. So this isn't necessarily a flaw. It's just how our brains evolved. Thousands of years ago, making quick assumptions ultimately is what helped us survive. So if the bushes moved, right, your brain assumed it was a predator. Better to be wrong than to be eaten. But today, the same brain looks at a 2-pound weight increase and assumes danger. Only now the danger isn't a freaking tiger. The danger is failure. So what I want to dive into is the difference between evidence and story. And this is how I explain it to my clients. Evidence is objective. Story is interpretation. So evidence is something you could prove in court. Story is everything your brain adds afterward. So let's go through like a couple of examples here. Example 1, the evidence. I weighed 172.8 pounds this morning. The story. I'm gaining all my weight back. The evidence. I ate dessert last night. The story. I have no self-control. Let me throw in one more. The evidence. I only got one workout in this week. The story. I'm lazy. So, see the difference? One is measurable. The other one is completely made up. Now, before anyone gets defensive listening here, I'm not saying the story feels fake. It's incredibly real and you're validated. But feelings at the end of the day are not facts. And that's where so many women get trapped. So let's talk about how stories become self-fulfilling. Here's where it gets fascinating, at least to me, because as you guys all know by now, I geek out over all the psychology stuff. But ultimately, your stories don't just affect your emotions. They quite literally affect your behavior. Let's say you step on the scale Monday morning and it's up 2 pounds. So the story that you've created is, I've ruined everything. How do you feel in this moment? Probably discouraged, probably a little defeated, frustrated. So now what do most people do? They skip tracking, they eat emotionally, they avoid the gym, they say, fuck it, I'll wait until Monday. The story just now created behaviors that eventually create the outcome you feared, not because the scale was right, but because your reaction to the story changed your actions. The scale didn't derail you, the story did, and that is a huge, huge difference. So why are women especially vulnerable? So as women, our bodies fluctuate constantly. Hormones, stress, sleep, sodium, digestion, menstrual cycle, inflammation from workouts, travel, alcohol. One salty dinner can increase water retention. Even a freaking hard leg day can increase inflammation. Poor sleep affects your water balance. But at the end of the day, all of those that I just listed, none of those equal fat gain. But if you don't understand that, your brain creates the worst case scenario. You assume you've gained fat overnight, which biologically speaking is nearly impossible. You'd have to eat roughly 3,500 calories above your maintenance to gain 1 pound of fat. Not 3,500 calories total, 3,500 above what your body needs, ultimately putting you into a surplus. Most women don't do that accidentally from one dinner out. You guys, it's really, really hard to eat that many calories. I mean, unless you just have, one of those binge moments, whatever it may be. But one meal out that may have not been planned does not equate to 3,500 calories. So yet, even though rationally, that most women still have their brain say, well, I blew it. And so I'm just going to start over on Monday. Again, this is evidence versus story. So what happens is your brain is looking for proof. And this reason really, really matters to understand. So your brain loves confirmation, and psychologists call this confirmation bias. Whatever you already believe, your brain looks for evidence to support it. If you secretly believe, I always fail, then guess what your brain notices? Every mistake, every missed workout, every scale increase, every imperfect meal. But what does it ignore? It's ignoring all the freaking habits and wins that really did stack up over the week, like your walks, like hitting your protein, like getting your workouts in, the consistency that you've shown, ultimately all the non-scale wins, non-scale victories. Your brain isn't lying to you. It's literally just filtering information to support your existing beliefs. That's why two women can experience the exact same week and interpret it completely differently. One might say, my weight stayed the same this week. That's frustrating, but I'm getting stronger. While the other one may say, my weight stayed the same this week. My body's broken. Same evidence, different story, different outcome, right? So where I tie this in with my clients, because all of my clients experience this all the time. And one thing I hear all the time is, I thought I did really well this week, but the scale still went up. And immediately their confidence disappears, and they ruminate in that guilt and that remorse. But here's what I always ask them. What evidence do you have that the program isn't working? And usually this causes them to pause, because when we actually look, they can notice they hit their protein, they walked more, they hit their steps, they're lifting heavier, they're sleeping better, their energy is great, they're no longer having that afternoon slump, their digestion has improved. And so the evidence is actually saying they're progressing, but the story says they're failing. So which one do you think they're reacting to? The story, always. So here's an exercise that you can use, whenever something like this triggers you. And it's a 3-step reset. So the most important thing is to pause and ask yourself these questions. And I have to also emphasize, when you write out your thoughts, so let's say you're asking yourself these questions that I'm about to pose to you, and you physically write it out, whether it's a pen and paper or pulling out your notes app, you are quite literally stopping the cycle right there. You are forcing your brain to slow down, no longer think emotionally, and actually start reacting or responding logically and rationally. So I encourage you, whoever's listening to this, to get out a pen and paper, get out your notes app, and do this exercise when you feel triggered. So, question 1, what are the facts? Not opinions, not assumptions, only facts. So a fact could be, I weighed 168 this morning on the scale. Another fact, I ate pizza Friday night. Another fact, I missed one workout this past week. That's it. That is it. Now, question 2, What's the story I'm telling myself? So think about now the emotional thoughts that are coming in. Someone might say, I'm failing, I'm weak, I'll never change, my metabolism is broken. And so write it down. Getting it out of your head often helps you see how dramatic or how simply untested it really is. Again, you're doing a brain dump to get those thoughts out. Now, the final question is, what's another explanation that's equally or more likely? Maybe it's you're retaining water because you had a high sodium meal the night before. Maybe it's you're stressed because personal issues are coming up and your cortisol is high. Maybe your menstrual cycle is influencing the scale because you are in your luteal phase. Or maybe it's you're building habits that just haven't shown up on the scale yet. The goal isn't blind positivity. The goal isn't to force you to think with a positive mindset. It's trying to show your brain balanced thinking. What you're doing is you're replacing assumptions with possibilities that actually fit the evidence rather than letting your brain run free with all of these assumptions. Or with all of these non-facts. It's just your emotional responses. So why does this matter when it comes to a weight loss journey? So this tool doesn't just apply to the scale. It applies everywhere. Your relationship, motherhood, work, your everyday confidence. Maybe someone doesn't text you back and the story you're saying in your head is they're mad at me. But the evidence is they just simply haven't replied yet. That's a huge difference, right? Your boss gives feedback. Maybe the story is, I'm terrible at my job. But the evidence is I received feedback on one project. Our brains love extremes. So learning to separate evidence from story builds emotional resilience in every area of life. So while this is extremely applicable to a weight loss journey and why I use this exercise with majority of my clients, it can still be applicable to all areas in life because no matter what, remember, your brain is looking for evidence to support what you think. So you need to write down the difference between the story you're creating and the actual facts. So here's my challenge for anyone listening this week. Every time you catch yourself spiraling, I need you to ask yourself, and you have to catch yourself in that moment and pause. What's the evidence and what's the story? And then ask one more question. If I were coaching my best friend through this exact situation, what would I say to her? Because chances are you'd give her far more compassion, a different perspective, and grace than you're probably giving yourself, right? So remember this. The scale doesn't create your emotions. One meal doesn't define your progress. One imperfect week doesn't erase months of consistency. Those things are just events. Your story is what gives them meaning. So the more you practice separating evidence from story, the more you'll stop making decisions based on fear, shame, or assumptions. And ultimately, you'll start making them based on facts. And that, my friends, is where lasting change happens. So, if this episode resonated with you, share it, take this exercise, and apply it to all areas in life. Because I promise you, something like this is absolutely going to shift the way you think and ultimately recondition your brain into having a better relationship with yourself and just honestly your confidence, because every woman deserves to feel confident in her body and in her mind. So just remember this as I wrap it up. Your story is not your reality. Your actions repeated over time are what shape your results. So keep showing up, keep trusting the process, and I will catch you next time.